Very much for joining us this Wednesday morning here on Breakfast Central. Good morning to our viewers here in Nigeria and across the world, wherever you might be watching us from. As always, we encourage our viewers to be a part of our conversation simply by tweeting at News Central TV on all social media platforms, or simply leave a comment at the YouTube section, or comment section rather. And of course, we would love to read it. Sometime in the 8 o'clock hour, the phone lines are also going to be open for you to share your thoughts. This morning, we are going to be reviewing some of the biggest conversations for the next 2 hours, some of the biggest conversations happening here in Nigeria. I think top two major talking points, have been from the EFCC and its case against Yahaya Bello. Yesterday, it was reported that he, finally, after weeks, maybe even months of evading the EFCC and, the games that have been played and the heavy criticism from Nigerians against the EFCC for failing to act and, pretty much do the same thing that they would have done to the average Nigerian who had been accused of money laundering, mismanagement of funds, 100 billion naira fraud. Nigerians, of course, had heavily criticized the EFCC. Yesterday, eventually, the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, made himself available. The EFCC, according to news reports, then detained him. So we're going to be looking deeper into these conversations this morning and the, legitimate criticism, from the EFCC and Yahaya Bello and seeing where this case eventually leads. One thing that Nigerians have repeatedly advised the EFCC is, if it hopes to fix the integrity issues that it has across the country, it must be able to, and of course, it's not just the EFCC, that is in this picture that has been painted, but the EFCC must be able to build a strong enough case against some of these high-ranking political leaders and politicians, and not just the EFCC, but also the courts. We must have a criminal justice system that is seemingly fail-proof, so that when we have situations like this, we do not see politicians, play these gimmicks and eventually evade arrest or evade justice by the criminal justice system. And so it has been advised multiple times to the EFCC that you should have a very well put together case. And so when eventually you arrest a high-ranking politician, a former governor, a former National Assembly member, they will have their day in court, and the courts, will be able to maybe, find them guilty if the case is strong enough. But Nigerians basically, in the most bare terms, Nigerians just want to see some of these persons who have been accused of mismanaging billions and billions and billions of naira have their day in court and, pretty much face the same treatment that the average Nigerian would face. If you remember, there is a former member of the National Assembly who was found guilty of, billions of naira in fraud, while he was governor. He eventually spent a couple of weeks in prison, and eventually the case was thrown out because, one court ruled that the other court didn't have the jurisdiction to hold, to sentence him. And eventually he found his way back in the National Assembly. These and many other cases really are some of the things that continue to deplete and beat down the credibility of our criminal justice system, beat down the credibility of the courts in Nigeria, and of course the EFCC as well. So it's fingers crossed from 200 million Nigerians, fingers crossed to see where Yahaya Bello's case leads. If you remember, the EFCC chairman, Olaolukoyede, had made very bold statements, about how he must see the end of the Yahaya Bello prosecution, Yahaya Bello's case. And so now that the show of shame seems to have come to an end, now that he has been arrested, we would like to see where this leads. But aside, this major story, there's also the NNPC in the news, which we're going to be talking about as well. Yesterday, of course, news broke that the Port Harcourt Refinery had finally started, refining and producing petrol, premium motor spirit, for Nigerian consumers. But that news story didn't last very long, because a couple of hours later, there was another news report, basically saying that it wasn't very, very true that the Port Harcourt Refinery was now fully functional and producing petrol for Nigerians. There's still lack of clarity. The NNPC did put out a statement yesterday as well trying to reassure Nigerians that they were still work in progress. They spoke about the old Port Harcourt Refinery and what it was producing, and then spoke about the new Port Harcourt Refinery that they are still working on, and, will be fully functional very soon. And so, it's important, that there is proper clarity as to where exactly we are with the Port Harcourt Refinery, because Nigerians are anxious. Nigerians would like to see if the emergence and the function of Port Harcourt Refinery will bring down the price of petrol for the average Nigerian. Nigerians would like to see that at least one or two, maybe, of its state-owned refineries is fully functional. We would like to see, that we're not relying solely on the Dangote refinery that is currently selling petrol at 970 naira per litre, even if that hasn't really affected the price of petrol, at the petrol stations across the country. These things are very important, and I've repeatedly asked that there should be some Senate session, there should be some fact-finding session by the National Assembly as to what exactly is going on with Dangote's refinery, and of course, with the Port Harcourt refinery and other refineries across the country. With the billions and billions and billions of naira that have been spent on these refineries, with almost no output. These things will be part of our conversations this morning as we get into Wednesday morning's Breakfast Central. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Let's quickly share with you what our top stories are, and then right after that, bring you breakfast headlines. This morning, Yahaya Bello finally reports to the EFCC after months of hide and seek. And jubilation erupts as Port Harcourt Refinery, reportedly finally begins operation. There's still some doubt in that story. The TUC faults Zamfara, Cross River, and others over tax relief for workers. And also this morning, the federal government defends borrowing despite revenue gain. We'll also be sharing with you what the major stories are making headlines across Nigeria this morning on the newspaper front pages. Stay with us. Now let's begin breakfast headlines by telling you that after several postponements, the Port Harcourt Refinery has reportedly commenced fuel production. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited confirmed this to newsmen on Tuesday. According to the Chief Corporate Communications Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Femi Shoneye, he said the loading of trucks would start off yesterday, Tuesday, and he also stated that this historic achievement marks the beginning of a new era of our country's economic development and energy independence. But like we reported, there's still, some clarity being sought as to the, the actual production and the actual state of the Port Harcourt Refinery, and we'll bring you further details in the course of today's bulletins. Now, in the meantime, President Bola Tinubu has congratulated the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited on the successful revitalization of the Port Harcourt Refinery. Tinubu also urged NPC Limited to expedite the scheduled reactivation of the second Port Harcourt refinery and the Warri and Kaduna refineries. The refinery located in Rivers State consists of two complexes: the old refinery, which was built in 1965 with an initial capacity of 60,000 barrels per day, and the new refinery constructed in 1989, which added another 150,000 barrels per day capacity. Together, both refineries have a combined capacity of 210 barrels per day, making it one of the largest refineries in sub-Saharan Africa. Meanwhile, reactions have trailed plans by the federal government to privatize Nigeria's 4 government-owned refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna. Special Advisor, Media and Public Communications to President Bola Tinubu, Sunday Dare, disclosed the privatization plan. Reacting, the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSAN, faulted the government's haste to privatize public refineries, going by the experiences of the privatization exercise in Nigeria. Now, away from that, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has raised the monetary policy rate, MPR, to 27.50% from 27.25% as part of efforts to combat surging inflation. This followed the meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The monetary policy ratio marks the benchmark interest rate. The Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Yemi Cardoso announced this in Abuja on Tuesday during the last MPC meeting of the year at the Apex Bank's headquarters. And also in the news, The former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, has honored the invitation of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission over alleged misappropriation of funds. New Central gathered that he went to the office with his lawyers on Tuesday morning and not with the current governor of Kogi State, Usman Ododo, as he did earlier when he went to the Anti-Graft Agency's office unannounced, taking the EFCC by surprise. The latest development follows the Supreme Court judgment which dismissed the case filed by some states challenging the constitutionality of the Anti-Graft Agency. And President Bola Tinubu will depart Abuja for France on Wednesday, today, to begin a state visit in honor of an invitation from President Emmanuel Macron. In a release by Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, the Nigerian leader's three-day visit, which will focus on strengthening political, economic, and cultural relations and establishing more opportunities for partnership, particularly in agriculture, security, education, health, youth engagement and employment, innovation, and energy transition, also promises significant benefits for Nigeria. President Tinubu and wife, Warri Tinubu, will be received on Thursday at the 350-year-old French Military Museum by President Macron and his spouse, Brigitte, for initial ceremonies that will dovetail into bilateral meetings. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Now let's head back to Breakfast Central and get into our top stories. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. So many conversations will be had this morning, but before we went on that short break, we did tell you what the headlines are. And one of the headlines is that Yahaya Bello finally submits himself to the EFCC. The question is, what exactly does submitting oneself mean, which is something that we hopefully would explore much later. But now let's tell you that the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria has raised concerns over the non-implementation of the new national minimum wage by the governors of Cross River, Zamfara, and other states. The union called on states currently in the process of implementing the wage structure to work within the current economic realities of the country. We have a package that will be brought to you by News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu, who does further report on this. But just again, to talk about the fact that when we're clamoring for the increase of minimum wage, it was because the current realities do not support the ability of the average Nigerian worker to be able to make ends meet. Before now, they were earning, a number of them were earning 30, 35,000. And how do you explain that to a worker who has to make ends meet and have families that they have to feed? A report was done that was put on the front page of The Guardian some 1-2 months back, and on that front page, they did a breakdown of how much it will cost to feed a family. And in that report, it says that a family of 4, so let's imagine the husband, the wife, and the kids, or whatever the dynamics are, a family of 4 that has to eat once a day will need 150,000 naira to be able to survive on a basic meal. Now, the question is, how then does the average Nigerian survive in a country where the minimum wage is slated at 70,000 naira, and yet some states are not able to work within that? So what does working within the current economic realities mean for Nigerians, Nigerian workers, and for these states who have to pay these salaries? Part of the clamoring against it, for those who thought it was, the NLC was asking for too much at the time, was that it's one thing for you to ask for the minimum wage to be increased, but it's another thing for the states to actually be able to afford this minimum wage. And as we are starting to see, some of them may not be able to afford it, which then brings us back to the conversation about the ability for states to then look within and factor internally generated revenue options and how they can be able to power their states. But let's share with you the package done by Emmanuel Bagudu, News Central's correspondent, and when we come back, we'll take more conversations. Stay with us.
An integral part of the nation's organized labor, deliberated on pressing issues affecting Nigerian workers. Speaking to the press, the TUC president, Festus Osifo, railed out the burning issues, beginning with the current drive by organized labor to ensure full implementation of the new national minimum wage by government at all levels.
Cross River, there is a 2-day morning strike that is currently going on in Cross River State. Because the government of Cross River State is not responsive to the plight of workers regarding the issues of minimum wage. Then, a state like Zamfara, as we speak, have not started have not brought any, have not even constituted a committee to discuss on the issues that are bordering on minimum wage. So there is no conversation going on currently in Zamfara State on how the new minimum wage will be implemented and how the consequential adjustment should be done. So we are hereby calling on the governor of Zamfara to emulate what is happening in the state that is very close to it, that also have similar revenue. A state like Kogi today is also taking a lead.
Osifo went further to present the union's stance on the ongoing tax reforms and other issues bothering the Nigerian workers, which he described as the downtrodden in the society.
The downtrodden Nigerians, they are passing through excruciating hunger and they are passing through pains as we speak today. Yes, government has said that for those that are around minimum wage, that there is going to be tax relief. But we hereby call that that net should be expanded much more. That net should be expanded to give more Nigerians tax relief so that they could be able to use their earnings to cater for their families. Because as you rightly know, the cost of goods in the market is outside the roof.
With just 5 days to the 1st December planned strike by the organized labor, it is hoped that state government will meet up with the union's demand and avert another strike. In Abuja for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Well, these are, conversations that would almost never end. There's even those who argue that certain states should pay, way more than even 70,000 naira. I've seen a few comments that say that Lagos should be paying maybe 100 or 120,000 naira minimum wage. If you're looking at the money that Lagos makes, annually, the revenue generated here in Lagos, I beg your pardon, it argues, or the person argues that Lagos should pay even more, and then says some states, that would struggle because their generated revenue is really nothing, compared to, some states. So it's a conversation that I believe, we should continue to have. We'll continue to expand, and see where it leads. It doesn't sound fair that people in Lagos, that makes, a certain amount of money would be earning the same minimum wage people in Enugu State, for example, or Ebonyi State, for example. It just doesn't, sound very okay. But we'll, continue to expand and see where it leads. The former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, has again honored the invitation of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission over alleged misappropriation of funds. Now, according to the report, the embattled governor, or former governor rather, drove himself in a black Hilux vehicle to the anti-graft agency's office on Tuesday morning in company of his lawyers following the Supreme Court's judgment, which dismissed state's case on constitutionality of the anti-graft agency.
Recall that at the last hearing on the fresh charges preferred against the former governor, which is before Justice Marian Aneni of the Federal Capital Territory High Court, Maitama in Abuja, heard on November 14th, the EFCC had sought for an adjournment to today, the 27th of November, in the fresh case it instituted against Bello, saying the 30 days window was still running for the summons earlier issued. The EFCC, however, admitted his co-defendants, Umar Oricha and Abdul Salami Hudu, to administrative bail and prayed to the court for an extension of time for the first defendant to appear. The matter was subsequently adjourned by the trial judge for the arraignment of Bello. Well, I think that, this is Nigerians are already exhausted. It just feels like it's in a way made a mockery of the work that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is doing to fight corruption. Because first time we heard he submitted himself to the EFCC. Remember we had the EFCC spokesperson on the show and asked, why did he come to you and you didn't arrest him, even though he was already declared wanted by you? And he had been summoned by the court and had failed to appear before the court. They kept talking around in circles. That had happened the first time, allegations of an attempted arrest, even after he had left. So it just feels like we're in a circus and watching a show unfold. I don't know now. I need a bit of clarity, and I'm hoping that the EFCC can provide that because I've checked. They've not yet released. As at the last time I checked this morning, there wasn't an official press release to that statement. But can the EFCC let us know? Did you arrest Yahaya Bello when he submitted himself? Did you not arrest Yahaya Bello? Are we waiting because today is the day in court? What happens if Yahaya Bello does not present himself in court again today, as has been his practice in the past few months. This matter has lingered for way too long. This matter has been on since April. This is how many months now? And we're still on the same subject matter. We can't even get him to appear in court and take his plea to officially kickstart the case. So I think that, it just really makes a mockery of the work that they're doing. The EFCC would argue that Yahaya Bello is one in many. But what they do not realize is that Yahaya Bello is a key case. It's a case of a public figure. And Nigerians are at a point where they're frustrated by the high cost of living. NBS is releasing statistics that is showing that our GDP has improved in third quarter. Nigerians are saying that, look, we cannot translate what the numbers are saying to our current realities. Every other day we're hearing, months ago we heard about the cutting the cost of governance, the Orsai report being implemented. They were given 12 weeks. A committee was set up to implement that. We haven't heard anything about it. And this administration has been criticized for being an administration that has largely, exploited people. Now, Yahaya Bello did not serve under the current administration, all well and good. However, if you're an administration that is being criticized for how you've lavishly spent, how wide your cabinet is, how, an over-bloated budget, some would argue, then show that you're an administration also that is bent on fighting corruption. The Warri administration touted itself to be one that was keen on fighting corruption. In fact, that's what a lot of people will say why a lot of people will say that they voted him, because they needed somebody with iron hand that had experience to flush out all the corrupt people. Unfortunately, corruption still thrived in the Buhari administration. So I think that this is a very key case that will determine how things turn out, especially if you do a comparison vis-a-vis the case with Bobrisky and how Bobrisky was handled. You would see many Nigerians would argue that Bobrisky's case, right, it paled in comparison to the Yahaya Bello case, especially because Bobrisky is a civilian. Yes, they are both civilians, but this is a regular citizen. But this is a public servant, someone who served in public office and has not even appeared.
It once again, brings back the idea that there's two separate legal systems, for Nigerians. There's, that for the, big politician, and then there's that for the average Nigerian, the poor man. You're obviously treated very differently. The criminal justice system treats you very differently, depending on your status. You would almost never see the average Nigerian being given the leverage that Yahaya Bello has been given. Right. In the time that, his case has been, made public.
7 months.
Remember the EFCC's chairman, Olaolukoye, they made bold statements back then, and eventually Nigerians were waiting. And you wouldn't blame the average Nigerian for holding this vendetta against, his politician, and wanting to see that one person, popular politician, actually goes to jail, for misappropriation of funds. And this is not saying that anybody is guilty, because, they still have to have their day in court. But, it's just expressing why many Nigerians hold the EFCC's, neck like this every time, that there's a case like this. So yes, it seems like there's two justice systems for Nigerians, between the rich politician and the average Nigerian. But also, the Warri administration that you mentioned had numerous cases, and this is one of the reasons that the criminal justice system and the EFCC and every other corruption fighting agency in Nigeria has lost a lot of its credibility. If you remember first of all, the aviation minister, Hadi Sirika, former aviation minister, has this corruption, case that is still, lingering. We're still waiting to see where that one leads. The EFCC chairman, there's about 2 of them in the Buhari administration that were accused of corruption. Till now, nobody really knows where those cases went or what happened with those cases. If any of all those people, will eventually have their day in court, or those cases have simply been thrown out. I remember the minister for, I can't remember his name now, but was accused of stealing over 106 billion naira back then. Eventually, a couple of weeks later, received a chieftaincy title, in his state in northern Nigeria, and that's the end of that case. So, the credibility of the EFCC and the credibility generally of our criminal justice system has continued to be questioned. And it is situations like this that raise those questions as to what exactly we are doing if we claim to be fighting corruption in Nigeria. And it's really not just about arresting internet fraudsters, alleged internet fraudsters. There's so much that needs, of this question that need to be asked. If you remember, a couple of days ago, the Auditor General released a report that said 197 billion naira was allegedly misappropriated by certain MDAs in Nigeria. It's not the first time that we're hearing of such in Nigeria. The Auditor General's report comes out, I believe it comes out every year, at the end of every year. And every now and then you hear of these very damning and shocking revelations from the Auditor General's report that we really just read in the news and move away from. Nobody really pays attention to it. But I have repeatedly mentioned that Nigeria loses a lot of money through the MDAs and the leakages that exist in these MDAs because of a failed auditing process with, the MDAs across Nigeria, both on the federal and on the state level. There's billions and billions, arguably even trillions of naira that really just disappears into private bank accounts, through fake companies and company names, fake contracts and the likes, just like the Auditor General mentioned. So the fight against graft has its, major loopholes, but also the EFCC has its own questions that must be answered. The judiciary in Nigeria has questions that must be answered as well. And Nigerians are really anxious to see how this case eventually turns out. They're in the spotlight. It's left for them, to see how, they carry the case. All
right, let's see how that will turn out. So I think the question, that Nigerians have a lot of questions as to whether or not Yahaya Bello is in custody, what happens if Yahaya Bello jumps bail, and what picture all of this paints. Hopefully, helping us to answer these questions and more is Towo Oseruwoja, who's a legal practitioner. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Morning.
All right. So I think the first question would be to get your sense of, what the EFCC versus Yahaya Bello case, what it portrays, what it tells you. What picture does it paint to Nigerians? And what picture does it paint to you?
Well, I think it's not new. It's not new. If you look at since 1999, each administration has a way of fighting corruption, particularly using the anti-graft agency. Let me just give you a memory lane, and I'll ask you what was the outcome of those fights after the media stunts. During the Obasanjo regime, one of the persons we look at that he used as an instrument, or he used to as an example, is the former governor of Bayelsa State, DSP Elamesiya. And you could see that after the media stunt, after the allegation, at the end of all this thing, he was convicted, or he was granted pardon by the then Goodluck Jonathan's regime. Then during Goodluck Jonathan's regime, which is Goodluck Jonathan and Yar'Adua's regime, you see the like of the anti-graft fight of the former governor Ibori, who later escaped and was convicted there in the UK. Then outside Ibori, there's many of them. And if you ask yourself, what was the outcome? It is zero. I think the former governor of Plateau State, Dariye, was also part of those that was part of the corruption regime fight. Then when you come to the most interesting one, which is the one of Buhari, you talk about Sambo Dasuki. I mean, what was the outcome of Sambo Dasuki with the homogous amount of money alleged or stated that he has embezzled, he used in funding political activities? I think the thing just went down the drain. You talk about the former Attorney General of the Federation, who later, I think Nigeria is owing apology over the marbles, Mabula power plant scandal and all those stuff. Then this is Yahaya Bello now. Yahaya Bello, the governor of the former governor of Kogi State. And if you look at how Yahaya Bello became the governor of Kogi State, you least expect that this allegation will come after, because I think he's one of the people that I will refer to that the ancestors or the benevolent spirit cracked his cranium, because he never, and if you look at how he became the governor of Kogi State, is of a divine intervention. But look at the turn of event. He was charged of an offense, and that is a different count on corruption allegation. Do you understand? And now, in the course of that, even though he has not appeared, there is another charge against him. So what does that tell you? That our anti-graft agencies They are quick, immediate trial than due diligent investigation and prosecution of corruption cases. It's just the political regime that determines who goes in and how it plays out. But Yahaya Bello, to everybody, is already guilty, but you'll be shocked with the turn of events that Yahaya Bello may skate through the legal process, not because the judiciary is corrupt, but because of the attitude of our law enforcement agency, particularly the investigating stage of it. We will still be shocked that in the ongoing, you will still see that the charge will be amended, some may be dropped, while some will be added. So that is just how it is in Nigeria.
So, I mean, are you saying, you know, that the EFCC, even with all the, you know, maybe I could call it barking of Alao Olukoyede concerning this particular case, are you saying that you still don't even trust that the EFCC has its house in order, you know, for a case like this?
Okay, let me throw the question back to you. When you talk about, I think, in my opinion, the EFCC are more of the media prosecuting agencies than law court prosecuting agency. Look at their sister agency, the ICPC. Do you see them make much noise compared to what the EFCC is doing? Look at what I think the EFCC is doing in Yahaya Bello's case. I'm not saying that what they are saying is wrong or right, but you could see what they've thrown to the public domain. Look at the people I've mentioned and look at the outcome of events. Some of them, okay, a good example, even on this regime, a good example, you talk about the former governor, the CBN governor. You could see that as the case is ongoing, you could see that they are dropping or they are amending or they are adding to the charge. That shows two things. If you look at it carefully, that shows that at the point of framing the charge, they've not been due diligence in their own job. And the court is not a court of public opinion. The court is not a court of public opinion. Where's Dizani Alizé Madueke, the former petroleum minister? Where is she today? But if there's due diligence, if there's more media publicity than the input in court, you see the outcome. And you could see how he presented himself. For you to know that the EFCC did not do their due diligence, because if there is due diligence, Yahaya Bello wouldn't have been in the country for more than 6 months, and they are still telling Nigerians that they can't find him. When they know that he has a police officer as an aide to him, when they know that they can work with the police to get him arrested even in his bedroom, because he has security apparatus around him. So, but you could see that the conflict of interest, more of political to me than the fight for corruption. Another person I want to also draw your attention to that we might have forgotten of a sudden, I think this man in question, you could see that the outcome, Fayose, the former governor of Kogi State, the former governor of Ekiti State, where's the outcome now? So I think the EFCC should develop a more robust strategy in fighting corruption. Rather than throwing tantrums in the media domain, they should go to the law court and fight the battle. I think the more publicity we have in politically exposed individual corrupt case, the more possible outcome will come.
Do you have the same expectations for the? Do you have the same expectations for the Delta State governor? He was alleged to have also mismanaged, you know, maybe more than ₦1 trillion.
Yeah. Yeah, the former Ukowa, the one of Ukowa now, you could see that, regrettably, you could see that he has even been, I hope the Delta State will not liking him like they're liking Ibori to be the messiah that is alleged. And you could see that when the publicity came out now, the Urobo Progressive Forum, the Urobo Progressive Union several unions has gone to pay him tribute and homage. Sympathy, because it's more of now the way the people see it is more victim rather than him being a alleged corrupt individual. Because of the way EFCC is doing their own issue. Do you understand? Because at the tail end of it, when people throw the tantrums, when people tend to look at, this person is corrupt, then you will see tomorrow either he has been granted pardon, or either the case has been thrown for lack of one technicality and the other. Ibori's case, when you look at Ibori's case in the UK, you discover that the prosecuting agency spent years investigating him, and it took them less time in prosecuting him. But in Nigeria, we spend less in investigation to take time in prosecuting. So rather than the culprits now becoming at the mercy of the society, it becomes the victim, where he draws sympathy from the society. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. So for the one of Ukowa, I think basically you ask, Ukowa has gone for it, yes. It's a matter of time now. Do you see it in the media? Then maybe at the tail end of it, you see a charge will be framed. In the course of the charge, a new dispensation will come in after 8 years or 4 years. Then you see either Nigeria apologize to him, or is granted pardon, or an amnesty is entered, or the Attorney General will enter a nollie prosecute to say that they don't have the material evidence to prosecute.
Okay.
Remember, okay.
I'd like us to, because we're running out of time, and I want us to juice as much as we can from the Yahaya Bello conversation. There's the fresh charges instituted against him. We hear that there's a hearing that's meant to happen today, the 27th of November. Before now, Yahaya Bello has been evading arrest. He hasn't even taken his plea yet. So what are your projections for what happens next? Do you see him appearing in court? And if he doesn't appear in court, what should happen? There are those who think that he should be charged again with evading arrest, or he should be given an additional charge of, evading arrest. Is that something that should be explored?
Okay, well, first, if you look at the statement, I think I read the statement from the Economic and Financial Crime Commission that is currently in custody, and by virtue of him being in custody, he will be presented from their own end in court today. Then the charge before Yahaya Bello, regrettably, is a bailable offense, which is at the discretion of the court. Then this is where we will now look at what the court is going to do. It's a bailable offense, and I'll still tell you for free, the court is not a court of public opinion. They are blind to the society. So it's left for EFCC to bring out all this evidence to say, okay, well, it's a flight risk. Do you understand? It's a flight risk, and if granted bail, he will be he is not going to appear before the court. But another thing that caused for concern, a friend of mine in Canada, when he called me when we were discussing about this issue, in another platform, is that why is it now that Yahaya Bello is coming out? Why is it now? So, and somebody may believe that there might be an underground arrangement before that. But in Nigeria, we can't really predict the law per se. And the judge, in his own mercy, can decide the fate of Yahaya Bello. If the judge grants him bail, fine and good. He is definitely a bailable offense. If the judge grants him bail, he will be out of bail. Then for him invading arrest, arrest and all those stuff, you will look, if we are a people of accountability, what happened to his ADC? Because as at the time those conflicts happened, the ADC was with Yahaya Bello, who is a law enforcement officer. Then the governor of Kogi State is within that terrain, though he cannot be prosecuted. But the House of Assembly in Kogi State has the enormous power to determine what we call misconduct that would have emanated for impeachment for a governor of a state to be in such a controversial position.
We don't have those types of state houses of assembly in Nigeria.
We do. We don't have the kind of state house of assembly that would hold their governors to that level of accountability in Nigeria. Okay. That's the expectation. That's the expectation. Okay. That's what they are meant to do. But we all know that that's not reality. Another thing that we seem to forget is governors don't walk into state bank accounts and load Ghana must go of money and move away. There are people who approve contracts. There are people who approve payments. There are people who turn the other way when governors allegedly mismanage these funds. There's a lot of people in this whole circle of allegedly mismanaging 100 billion naira. And so why don't we ever hear their names? Why do we have systems that ignore the other people who should as well be guilty? Well, the law is that the prosecuting agencies are the discretion to determine who to prosecute. Do you understand? The governor in question is how will I put it now? I think let me give a statement to I was privileged to be in an occasion, I think a closed-door occasion where the former governor of Imo State, which is Rochas Okorosha, Rochas, the former governor of Imo State, when he said that a governor can do and undo. A good example of what you are giving now, a contract was approved in Kano. A video clip of the governor was seen collecting a kickback in pounds or in dollars. Do you understand? So in such circumstances, what will you say? So, but if you look at it, they'll look at it from the perspective of, oh, who is the head we can get hold of that can shake? Even in developed countries, they look at, okay, let's cut down the tree rather than the branch. So the governor seems to be the tree. And we are finding a situation whereby in Nigeria, a former president can also stand trial in all these circumstances. This will put a stop to all these excesses. So the governors, they possess enough power, a lot of power, and it's at the discretion of EFCC on who to charge and who not to charge.
We have to go now. I mean, you said it's the discretion of the EFCC on who to charge. You made mention of a press release. I'm not quite sure because I've checked their website and their X handle as to the press release. I'm not quite certain. I think the most we've seen is a media aide giving a press release to a media house stating that Yahaya Bello was not arrested and that he's a law-abiding citizen of the country and therefore drove himself to law enforcement agency. But in the next few hours, we'll find out what exactly will happen if he'll be charged to court, and we'll take it up from there. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
You are welcome.
All right. Now let's move on to our next story, which is maybe good news, I think, depending on what perspective you're looking at it from. The Port Harcourt Refining Company, PHRC Limited, in River State has officially commenced crude oil processing, they say. Femi Shonaya, the Chief Corporate Communications Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, made the announcement. He said, and I quote, "It is a monumental achievement for Nigeria as the Port Harcourt Refinery officially commences crude oil processing."
The announcement follows an inspection tour on Friday by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Senator Heineken Lokpobiri, and his team to assess the progress of rehabilitation work at the Port Harcourt Refinery. If you would recall, upon assuming office in August 2023, Senator Lokpobiri initially projected that production will begin in September, though this was later shifted to December. Now, in March of the following year, NNPCL Group Managing Director Mele Kyari announced that operations would start in April. Now, joining us is the National PRO Petroleum Products Retail Outlets Owners Association, Dr. Joseph Obele. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. I think it's safe to first of all confirm for those who are still unsure of what exactly is going on here with regards to the Port Harcourt Refinery producing petrol. Do you have confirmation that yes, the refinery is fully producing right now, or is there any doubts whatsoever? Because if you remember, or if you are aware, yesterday there was another news update from some other platform stating that the Port Harcourt Refinery wasn't producing, that what they were doing was blending exactly, and for selling that to marketers. So can you confirm for us what the exact situation is?
Okay, I want to start by saying congratulations to the management of NNPC and the National Head Office of Petron. We want to use this office also to commend Mr. President. If NNPC are really committed, the funding can really be an issue, but Mr. President made the funding possible, and hence we've seen the light of yesterday. Now, the key question, yesterday over 200 journalists were there, both print media, social media, and the rest were all there. The two key questions I asked the CEO of NNPC yesterday was the fact that, is the plant really producing? Then number two, is it really a one-off something, or is we're going to see it running? Those were the two questions. And the GND and all the stakeholders that were there were taken to all the plants, and we saw the plant is up and running. And as a national PRO of Petron by Prozi, I'm also an indigene of the host community, at least of this facility. So we have our friends, our brothers working in this plant. We have our friends as engineers, technicians in this plant. And again, as part of my oversight function, I have a direct access to the facility. where we go to see things firsthand by ourselves. So I want to state categorically that the plant is running as we speak. But is it running at optimal capacity? That is not really true, a reality. The GND mentioned yesterday and the technical team mentioned that it is running at about 70% capacity. And in this case, we are talking about the old refinery, the premium refinery, the first refinery in Nigeria that won't service the entire Africa with the capacity of, the first capacity was 50,000 barrels, and it was later upgraded to 55 and 60. So the 60,000 barrels capacity right now as we speak is operating at about 70% capacity. And they mentioned that in the next few months, it will be operating at optimal capacity, which is 100% capacity. And another issue following the insinuation is the question if this refinery that has commenced yesterday will reflect in price reduction, one, and the issue of termination or abolishment of importation for the international market. These are questions journalists were asking yesterday. And I want to say, the capacity of this refinery as it concerns the output on daily basis cannot really be an instance where Nigerians can hit to a chest to say never again to importation from the international market. So I think we see a bit of importation from the international market. But one of the biggest benefits is that the pressure on dollars as it concerns exchange of naira to dollar will reduce to the barest minimum, arising from the fact that a chunk of local consumption will be manufactured within Nigeria and will have access to it.
So you're confirming that the refinery you're confirming that the refinery is currently producing PMS for Nigerian consumption?
The refinery is producing. Yes, it's true. Forget about all the rumors and insinuations out there. It's producing. We were in the plant yesterday. Now, Obele, the National Bureau of IPMAN, I'm somebody that states fast exactly as it is. I don't pen figures. When they did this December 2023, when the light of that flare, I describe it as Ojoro flare. Go on my social media handles to see. The one that described what they did a year ago as Ojoro is the one saying this is a reality. And I must put to you, is this a reality? And we commend the GMD, the GCEO of NNPC, Malekari. He did very well. It's commendable.
How many liters can you say that it's producing daily of PMS?
It's insignificant. The quantity that will be coming out is not sufficient enough for us to say we are good to go. But when the biggest refinery in the Eleme, they are the second one, which is the 200,000 barrels capacity, join this of 60,000, then we can say we are good to go. But at the moment, we'll still be relying on the Dangote refinery to augment whatever will be coming out and a bit of importation. But the good news is, as at yesterday, competition has started trickling into the market, which is the basic indicator for price reduction. Until you see competition, there's no hope for price reduction because monopoly makes it exploitative. So at the moment, we have the price war have started about 2 days ago. As at yesterday, the traffic we should be seeing on the portal or in the loading bay of NNPC was reduced. What was the reason? As at yesterday, NNPC was selling to us 1,045 naira per liter, while Dangote was selling to us yesterday at 970 naira per liter, a variation of 75 naira. So which marketer will see NNPC selling 145 and then choose to buy from NNPC, whereas Dangote is selling 190 or 170 per liter? So in view of this, NNPC have announced that the next 1 or 2 days, they will be reviewing their price downward. And if your competitor is selling 970, we hope to see NNPC fix his price at 960 or 950. Dangote again will be forced to fix at. That's why we were agitating for competition. Hence, we have said competition. We want to say bravo to the Nigerian economy.
All right, Dr. Obele, now that you've confirmed, Dr. Obele, now that you've confirmed to us that the NNPC is producing, the Port Harcourt Refinery is producing, we hope that you can also help us lay to rest some of the controversies that have arisen as a result of this. Now, some of the controversy would be that they're mixing, and I want you to specifically speak to that, crack C5 with naphtha, and that, the refinery is not yet producing PMS. So the quality of the product that is being produced is in contention, as well as the fact that they're saying that they've brought Malta back to Nigeria, that it's more of what happens typically in Malta that's happening here in Nigeria. So we'd like you to speak specifically to that. Dr. Billy, are you here with us?
Okay, regarding that, I am a marketing lecturer, marketing lecturer in the uni. Yes, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I say, let me drop my office as a Petroleum PRO right now and speak as an energy expert. As an energy expert, the cracking process of crude oil to get the byproduct brings out some products that requires to be blended. One of such products is what we call SUG. One of that such product is what we call crack C4 and crack C5. So in all refineries, when you're cracking the crude oil, you must have this crack C4 and crack C5. So what they do, they add it up to the quantity available, which is PMS, and it gives you more of PMS. So it's not as if it's an adulterated product. Even those days when the Port Harcourt Refinery was functional, they were blending their crack C4 with their PMS to have more of that. So it's a normal operation in all refineries. But
including
the refinery at the moment is up and running, and it's not a blended plant.
Is that the same procedure that happens in the Dangote refinery?
There seems to be a delay with the connection, you know, but I
Your
think...
last question.
Yeah, the last question was like, you said that that's what happens in all refineries. Is that also what happens in the Dangote refinery, the crack C4 blending with naphtha, or, you know, the breaking that you've spoken about?
A standard is no, not blending with naphtha per se, but during the process of cracking crude oil, it brings the pop of crack C4, crack SUG, SU, different sorts of products, and they blend it later on. So it's a normal practice in all refineries. But the Port Harcourt Refinery, as at yesterday, I was there, I've seen this myself, it wasn't a blending plant, it was actual production and so on. But for blending, it does happen in every refinery.
We would wait for the next couple of days and see what information that we also would get, you know, from the NNPC to confirm. You know, but as of now, you know, it would be on record that you know, have confirmed that the NNPC is producing, you know, PMS, or Port Harcourt Refinery rather is producing PMS, and you've said that it's not producing a significant amount to be stated, but it's producing. We'll speak with you again pretty soon. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you for your time. Unfortunately, Dr. Bello had to go. I was hoping that we'd have a little more time with him because I needed a little bit of clarity as to when we talk about the Port Harcourt refinery, are we referring to the old refinery or the new refinery? So for the past,
I think it's the old one.
7 consecutive ones that have, the 7 consecutive deadlines that have been missed, was it the old refinery or is it the new refinery? I mean, NNPC has said that the new refinery is not going to be ready anytime. It's not ready, you know, now or, you know, maybe in the future, hopefully in the future, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty is it really just takes time, you know, and, you know, there will be more revelations, there will be more questions asked. Hopefully there is, you know, sincerity with, you know, the conversations that we're having.
And I can understand the cynicism expressed by a number of Nigerians, the doubt. Of course, it's because of the track record that we've seen. Having missed 7 rollout deadlines, you know, saying we'll commence and you've missed 7 up until October, right? Nigerians will, of course, be skeptical when they hear news like this. But Dr. Bello has confirmed, so it's great news and want to maybe celebrate, even though it's not significant now, but that as time unfolds, things will get clearer. Let's share with you the stories we've had this morning and then let you know what's still to come this morning. This morning on Breakfast Central, Yahaya Bello finally reports to the EFCC after months of hide and seek. What will this mean? I guess in the next few hours, we'll find out. Jubilation erupts as Port Harcourt Refinery finally begins operation, and Dr. Bello has confirmed that it's not a blending plant, but a processing one. TUC Falls, Zamfara, Cross River, others over tax relief for workers. Emmanuel Bagudu brought us that report this morning. Let's share with you what's still to come on Breakfast Central.
The federal government defends borrowings despite revenue gain. And also the newspaper front pages, what are the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning. Inaugural China-Africa Interbank Association Forum. We're bringing you live feed from that.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. And if you're just tuning in, a number of conversations have been had, but not to worry. We have you covered as we do post up our interviews on YouTube, so please do well to check out our past interviews at News Central TV on YouTube. But now is the time where you get to be a part of the show by calling in to react to any of the stories that catch your eye. We'll be reviewing the front pages of the papers this morning with you as our guest analyst. Let's start off with our first paper this morning. And on the front page of our first paper, the Daily Independent. Elated Tinubu mandates NNPCL to revive Warri Kaduna refineries. As Port Harcourt Refinery begins truck out of products, operation will create jobs, boosts product availability, according to Pandef. Calls for licensing of artisanal refineries. Senate considers Tinubu's request to confirm Oluyede as COAS. That's, of course, the Chief of Army Staff. Minister says livestock sector could contribute 33 trillion naira to economy. When we talk about the Ministry of Livestock, one of the conversations that would often spring up is, if we have a Ministry of Agriculture, why do we then need a separate Ministry of Livestock? Shouldn't that fall under the Ministry of Agriculture? But then
that's a report.
Right, exactly. Why do we keep having, because for every new ministry, we're going to have a minister, we're going to hire more people. It will definitely cost more to run these ministries when we can aggregate all the functions of this ministry. It's why it made sense to merge youth and sports development. If not, we should have probably, youth and sports development was separated, but there are those who would argue that youth and sport development should be brought under one ministry. So again, like you mentioned, our report here. Reps uphold Senate's decision on sack of Code of Conduct Tribunal Chair, Umar. Tinubu heads to France today. Johnny Messis felicitates Atiku Abubakar on 78th birthday. Names 3 CCV board members. Experts raise the alarm over growing national debt, say nation's public debt surges over 900% from 2015 to 2024. Mba presents 971 billion naira 2025 budget to Enugu Assembly. New interest rate will hurt savings account holders, analyst says. CBN raises interest rate for 6th time in 2024, now 27.50%. It'll be great to have the CBN join us on the show. We'll probably reach out to them to talk to us about this new interest rate and get an expert, to find out what exactly this will mean. Federal government laments loss of $1.1 billion annually to malaria. And that's all on the front page of the Daily Independent. Let's move over to our next paper.
All right, the next newspaper this morning is the Punch newspaper. It says here, alleged 110 billion naira fraud. Bello due in court today as ex-governor reports to EFCC. Ex-Kogi governor detained by anti-graft agency faces 16 counts. We can also find here PDP, NEC, pro-Wike governor set for showdown over Damagum. Port Harcourt Refinery, 200 trucks load daily, 150,000 barrels per day, LMA plant dormant. All right. 200 trucks load daily. Load what daily? Because the, Petron, head, you just, said now that there's nothing significant that is being produced in the Port Harcourt Refinery, so you can't really tell us what the, how many liters of PMS are going to be produced at the Port Harcourt Refinery. That he has, also said, we congratulates the president for getting it back to full production, or at least 70% production. So what exactly are these 200 trucks loading daily? As reported on the Punch.
Well.
Unpaid pensions, retirees set to occupy finance ministry. Hunted and executed, suspended Sonwolu's aide commence probe call. Not sure what that means, but for those who are in the dark, one of the aides, he has now been suspended, but one of the aides to the Lagos State Governor, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, had made a statement, on X 2 days ago in response to another person's statement concerning the EndSARS protest. And in his statements, he, had tweeted that certain persons who allegedly had attacked the TVC office in Lagos, where from his tweet, he was mostly saying that he had gory pictures and videos of those people who allegedly attacked the TVC office here in Lagos, and that most of them were hunted and executed, according to him, and that very soon he would, of course, the pictures and videos, the gory pictures and videos would be put out, which basically indicted, not just himself, but maybe also the government of Lagos State and the security forces present here in Lagos State, as to what happened in the 2020, in October 2020. If there were extrajudicial killings, if there truly were people who were murdered, by security forces in Lagos State or not, and there are many questions that have continued to be asked. And of course, when that tweet was put out, the outcry that followed it then led to his suspension. But I mean, from the comments that I've seen, a lot of people are saying that it shouldn't just be this person being suspended. The questions need to be asked.
But the government has distanced itself from that, just to mention that, they had put out a statement saying that they frown at extrajudicial killings and that no such thing occurred. They suspended him, but also said that they're distancing themselves from that, basically saying that, well, would I say deny that it happened?
So the thing is, I don't agree with the idea of government investigating itself and finding itself innocent, right?
I get that.
And it's pretty much the same thing, in a situation like this, you would expect that this person who, has made such a statement be brought forward to at least speak further. Proof. Yeah, tell us about these gory pictures and videos. Tell us, about these people who were executed, who were tracked down and executed like he said, or hunted down rather and executed like he said. It's important. Simply distancing yourself doesn't, wipe away the stain that this has caused. And, of course, the Lagos State government for the longest time has had, these type of characters around, the Lagos State government, working as special advisors and working as aides to the Lagos State government that have continued to just bring some level of dirt or stain to the government. It must do a better job in cleaning up the persons that it, surrounds itself with. The governor of the state, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, must do a better job at cleaning up the people that, he surrounds himself with as aides. Because this really paints a picture of what, or may paint a picture of what the Lagos State government really believes in. Even if its press statements might say otherwise, but the people who really work around the governor, if this is the way that they think, this is the kind of things that they would boldly say. You can then imagine that maybe this is the same mentality that Lagos State government is working with. Because there's those who have been accused of being tribal bigots. There have been those who have been accused of supporting the this is not your Lagos, or go back to Anambra. I can't remember the slogans that they used to, say back then during the elections, and basically, some level of bigotry or the other, around the elections. So yes, it should be more than just putting out the press statement saying, we denounce such, statements, there's no extrajudicial killings. No, he must be brought forward to answer these questions.
So the expectation then would be that the courts would be the one to, or maybe the Lagos State prosecutory agent, no, not Lagos State prosecutory, but like the courts, or maybe the Attorney General of Lagos State, would then take him to court. Is that your expectation?
It still goes back to Lagos State investigating itself, but at least the police force, it's not a Lagos State police force.
Right,
yes, right. The police is not run by Lagos State. But there should be an investigation. Should be invited for questioning to tell Nigerians more and tell the Nigerian police force more about these executions that he was speaking about.
Right.
At least, again, simply suspending the person doesn't fix the problem.
Okay.
Anyway, still on the Punch newspapers this morning. CBN sets $100,000 minimum trade for banks. I think we can quickly also add 4,449 policemen sue IG over delayed promotion.
Oh my goodness.
That's also one of the stories that we can find on the Punch newspapers this morning, and that's all we can take.
All right, let's move down to the next paper. On the front page of the Daily Times newspaper, article says Governor Fubara is Moses, restorer of Rivers State's glory. Wow, that's an interesting one. Condemns violence against women. President Tinubu celebrates Atiku Abubakar at 78. World Bank partners NYC on core empowerment. PDP group ditches Atiku seeks Southern presidential candidate. Tinubu seeks Senate confirmation of General Oluyede as Chief of Army Staff. President Tinubu accepts state visit invitation to France, and he leaves today, according to the media reports. Data Bridge, Governor Okpebholo orders urgent review of Edo e-governance platform. Now, this is to let you know that if there are any stories that you'd like to react to or share your thoughts with us regarding these stories, please call the numbers on your TV screen, and we'll be glad to have a conversation with you, air your thoughts on any of the stories. Remember that when you call in, you please mute the TV or the device you're watching the show from. But I would like to begin with this is maybe an overflowed conversation this morning, but let's talk about Yahaya Bello due in court today as ex-governor reports to EFCC. Now, the story that was making the rounds on social media was that Yahaya Bello had been arrested, but his media aide did make a presentation to a media house stating that he was not arrested. In fact, it was reported, according to the press statement, that he, as a law-abiding citizen, submitted himself to the EFCC, which begs the question, why did it take him this long to submit himself to the EFCC? Recall that a few months back, after being haunted, after being declared wanted, after being sued to court and then missing court appearance, he appeared in court. He submitted himself again to the EFCC at the EFCC headquarters. And when the EFCC made reference to this, because Nigerians were wondering, why did he submit himself and he wasn't arrested? And, when the EFCC was being questioned, their response was that, there's more information. And we did have the EFCC spokesperson on the show who said that there was more information about this that will be shared later. And I wonder when that later will be, because it's long overdue. And why many would argue, EFCC would say that they have other cases where they've done their work and where high-profile cases or high-profile persons have been sued. However, Nigerians would argue otherwise. And it feels like this Yahaya Bello's case is one that Nigerians will use as a prime example to rate the EFCC, even though the EFCC doesn't agree that Yahaya Bello's case is one that will taint their record. But Nigerians right now need an air of relief, something that makes it feel like we're in this together. The one thing the Nigerians have argued about is the fact that they haven't quite felt like the government is with them in their suffering, especially because the government tells us to keep cutting our, fastening our seatbelts, cutting our extra expenses to endure, things will get better. But if you keep telling people to endure, and then they're seeing that there are government officials who are living lavishly, who are spending and pillaging the commonwealth of the people, and these people are not made to answer to their crimes, it then begs the question if really these anti-graft agencies are very key and are very determined to fight corruption. I think many people don't expect that Yahaya Bello will appear in court today, and they just feel like it's going to be another rigmarole, another circus, and going around in circles until whoever gets tired first gets tired.
Well, let's give them, time.
Benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, benefit of the doubt and see where this leads.
Right.
Whoever, chooses to celebrate, that he eventually showed up yesterday can celebrate. But, the EFCC has the ball in its court, and of course, not just the EFCC, Nigeria's criminal justice system generally has the ball in its court. Let's see where this leads. And, we're not necessarily finding Yahaya Bello guilty. We're really just working on the case that has been alleged by the EFCC and the statements that were made also by Ola Olukoyede, the EFCC chairman. Lenin, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Olive.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
I want to talk about this Yahaya Bello case.
Yeah.
It is so appalling that in a country we find ourselves, like I always say, we find ourselves in this type of country called Nigeria. EFCC, they've been pursuing this man since April. He just turned himself up now to answer this case. Yeah, corruption has so deeply in Nigeria. Both the judiciary, I don't even read them at all. Once I see cases about them, I don't read them. Now, take it in the case of in the US, in the United States, like the Trump and Biden. If you're a corrupt person and you donate money to that campaign business, that your campaign,
election campaign.
It means that you are also, the person that is receiving that money will see you as a corrupt person. That is how a working country treats corruption. So if you are corrupt in the US, you cannot, if you are convicted 40 years ago, 50 years ago, it means you cannot even contribute to the society. Nobody will ever believe it again. That is how they fight corruption. But in Nigeria, you see people paying homage to somebody that has been indicted. The association will go and pay him courtesy visit. And so we are not even ready in this country. That is just the truth. Yeah, the judiciary, those ones that this thing that used to cover their face, a long time remove that veil that used to cover that woman's face on their listen. The law is seeing the thing like right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lenny.
Yeah. And like I said, we're still seeking clarity on exactly what the situation is with the Port Harcourt Refinery, the old, the new, either of them. Is the refinery producing PMS for Nigerian consumption or for the Nigerian market? Can trucks now drive there and buy petrol from the Port Harcourt Refinery or through the NNPC or not? How will this affect the price of premium motor spirit across Nigeria? Will the NNPC now be able to sell petrol lower than the Dangote refinery, which is, selling at 970 naira per litre? These are important questions. The head of Petron, this morning, joined us, and, from his statements, from what he said, the refinery is not producing enough, to be significant, and of course, for us to know the figures of exactly how many liters per day the Port Harcourt will be able to supply, the Port Harcourt refinery will be able to supply the Nigerian market, according, to the head of Petron, Dr. Obili. And so, we still see clarity. Nigerians would like to know what exactly is it producing, how many million liters will it supply the Nigerian market every month or every day, and will it reduce the cost of petrol or not? And if it is not producing, then who's lying here? Good morning, Elder David.
Hello.
Hello, good morning, Elder David. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma.
Good morning. Please go ahead with your comment.
Thank you very much. Well, we thank congratulations to Nigeria. Yeah, because we have seen Nigerian refinery working after many years. And we even see the private one, but what we are praying is that the petrol should come down. So there are people like us who are pensioners, and with our children that have no job, the price of things will come down. And I want to even ask again. Now, since 1999, they have spent a lot of money on this project, and it didn't work. You see how God does his job. It's not because I'm supporting somebody. Because somebody has come in now, it's not up to a year. We have a private refinery working. We have even our own that not be working now. Well, we thank God for everything. Let us be patient with this government, Tinubu. May God bring him to come and solve problems created by people from PDP from 1999 to 2015. Yes. Let us be patient. With only 1 year and a half year, never even reach a half year. Now, see, this is what is happening. And I'm not talking of politics. I'm talking as a man of God, because God has ordained him to solve the problem created by Atiku and Obasanjo, who created all these problems to 2015. Anyway, we thank God, but let the price come down so that all these things will be better for Nigerians. God will bless you people in this station because your station is very democratic. And God will bless every Nigerian. God will bless me. And God will bless people all in the APC.
Thank you very much, Elder David.
You now move to 2031. Nobody will stop them. And I tell you that.
All right. Thank you, Elder David, for sharing your thoughts and a lot of blessings this morning. But I guess in the next few weeks, we'll find out. Currently, at the reports that we had from Dr. Obele, who joined us this morning, is that for now, it's not significant enough to impact the cost of petrol. So we might have to wait a while before we then start to see the cost of petrol being impacted by this latest development. But let's move now to the Daily Times. Remember, we have a few more minutes to take your calls. And I'd like us to take the big story there. Article says Governor Fubara is Moses, restorer of River State glory, and condemns violence against women. We can see a picture here as well. Okay, that's a picture of Professor Mogalu. All right, the African School of Governance. All right, let's move to, article says Governor Fubara is Moses, restorer of River State glory. It seems like that we've had a bit of peace in Rivers State. You would agree, right? I think that the most drama we've heard regarding Rivers State is recently the decision of the courts to, the decision of courts regarding the payment of federal allocation to Rivers State. There's been a bit of calm. We haven't had as much drama as we have in the past few weeks, because before it was almost every other day something new. At the most, every 2 days, there's a breaking story or some big thing happening in Rivers State. But there'll be those who would argue that this drama in Rivers State is not necessarily about Governor Siminalayi Fubara and Governor Wike, as much as it is His Excellency Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and former Governor Nyesom Wike. That is, it's more of an internal party politics that has now snowballed with the state, Rivers State in particular, being collateral damage, in this situation. And at the end of the day, I'm hoping that Nigerians are watching, not just in Rivers State, because we see this trajectory happen where politics affects the state. Edo State is having its own fair share. Okpebholo versus Obaseki, all this drama happening, even though some would say that it's actually even better for them to have their issues and for investigations to happen on, like in situations where the former governor is working in the current governor is working in the former governor into the EFCC headquarters hand in hand, knowing that he has immunity and that the immunity that covers him, he spreads it and extends it to cover his predecessor who has been accused of a crime. But we're hoping to see a government in different parts of the country where priority is placed on governance as opposed to the plane of politics. Because when politicians play politics, which they always will do, governance takes a backseat, and governance doesn't matter. It's not important. For us to dismantle the political structure that currently exists, we will need a new crop of electorate and people who would hold these governments to account, people who would even be willing to play in these waters and cause a change, because you can't just say that you will sit back and relax and watch. It doesn't concern me. After all, I'm not interested in politics. The policies that these politicians who are interested in politics will make, these are the policies that will affect you. Let's hear from Yusuf. Good morning, Yusuf. Thank you very much for calling in.
Good morning, madam. Good morning. I'm a first-time caller, and I would like to
thank you for calling.
You're welcome. Use this opportunity to report the Jeddah police officer area hand. The rate of extortion in this area is too much. Okada riders cannot move, hotels cannot operate. You cannot even walk. They raid in the afternoon. You cannot walk on the street in the afternoon. You see them in their small bus, what do they call it, picking people on the street. I don't even know. I don't understand. The thing is just too high. And if you call one of them, say, Oga, come, waiting they happen. They'll say, in our area command that they send us. You know that's their language. The thing is just too much.
Which area is this?
Area hand, Ikorodu.
Ikorodu?
Yes, area hand. They say area hand. Our area command that send us. Let me even ask. Is it wrong to operate a bar or an hotel in this Nigeria? Because they will raid your hotel for no just reason. If they come, they ask you for money, you cannot give them they will even threaten you, I'll come raid you, I'll come bust your hotel loan, and all of those things. They just raid, they arrest unnecessarily, and this thing is just too high in this area. Is it wrong to own an hotel or to run a bar in this?
Is this a personal experience or a reported experience? Is this something that you've witnessed happen?
Yes, it's a personal experience. I was raided in an hotel for no just reason. I went there to buy, lawfully. Is it wrong to go to an hotel, buy, drink, and sit down?
All right.
And they'll collect 10,000 naira from you for no just cause.
That's really sad, and that's illegal. Thank you so much for reporting this, Yusuf. We will definitely reach out to the Lagos State Police Command and convey your concerns and hope that we can get a response and that this be investigated. Thank you so much for calling in. And this is something that has been, if you remember, this was one of the allegations against the EFCC and against law enforcement agents about how civilians and ordinary everyday Nigerians are the ones who have to bear the brunt of their illegality. EFCC was criticized for making unauthorized busts, even though that had been outlawed. All those midnight raids had been outlawed, but they were still going ahead to do that. This time around, it's not the EFCC that he's talking about. He's talking about the Nigerian police, and we're hoping that we can report this. We will report this to the Nigerian police and expect to get an answer and maybe an investigation. But then again, like you will answer, who will do the investigation? The police will investigate itself. Yeah, but it is what it is.
But I mean, it's not shocking news. So I think everyone, has heard stories like this, maybe even also experienced situations like this, from the Nigerian police, and these are some of the reforms, that Nigerians have constantly called for. The reforms in the police are really not these, the declaration of the end of roadblocks that you hear, with every new IG of police, or the withdrawal of policemen from VIPs. That's not the reform that we're speaking about. There's a complete overhaul of the thinking, of the operational tactics of the Nigerian police force. Good morning, Tony Eze. Good morning, Mr. Tony Eze.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Okay. I want to comment on an article calling Kubara Moses. The truth of the matter is that let us live, because some of us, so many people, Nigerians, are watching the drama that is happening in Rivers State. The end of this drama will tell us how judiciary is working in Nigeria. But for now, giving Kubara name Moses, why the state courts have not decided, anything can happen in Nigeria. Nigeria is a place that something you think will not happen will happen in your eye, Korokoro. So let us allow the matter to come to an end before giving him background, Moses. Anything can happen in Supreme Court. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but even aside the legal battles, that are still ongoing with regards to River State, I probably need to read up in the story and know exactly what, is making him Moses. Because I've constantly, asked that we need to, have better standards of leadership in Nigeria. I understand that a lot of Nigerians do not necessarily know better because they haven't, necessarily lived in, other places in the world to see how much better governance is rated. But, what exactly is the thing that makes this particular individual Moses?
Because he's dared to defy the standards of godfatherism that have prevailed in Nigerian politics, or do I dare say African politics. However, we must bear in mind that even though many citizens applaud him for being able to withstand the external influence of Nyesom Wike, unlike in Kogi State, where Yahaya Bello would say that if he, sorry, not Yahaya Bello, the current governor, Usman Ododo, would say that if he says something and Yahaya Bello says it, they should listen to Yahaya Bello, not him, right? So because there is a situation of subservience, but what people don't recognize is that even this Moses hasn't even played fair, because he too has played dirty. He's also has some stain on his hands. Recall during the house issue, how he demolished or allegedly demolished the River State building, River State complex.
Renovations.
Renovations, taxpayers' money. Well, anyway, we'll come back to that. Let's take Sunday, I believe, calling from Lagos. Good morning, Sunday.
Okay. Good morning.
All right, please.
Thank you for bringing up this matter this morning. I'm from Kogi State, and I want to talk about Yahaya Bello.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, the issue of Yahaya Bello, I know everybody knows, like every other government, any other government that has rule or govern one state or the other. There's no way that they must not touch the treasury of a state. But that of Yahaya Bello is, I don't know how to qualify it. He has overdone it. And now, I don't know whether the political allies in this state or the people who are shielding him, they don't know the essence of damage that Yahaya Bello has done to Kogi State. If they don't know, I want to, I'm here to categorically let people know, or the world know, or the Nigeria and the allies know, that what Yahaya Bello has done to Kogi State is more than what any other government, the most corrupt government from the 1999 that we came to democracy, have done to any state. Now, if you go to Kogi State now, when you talk of education, education, as we know, is the bedrock, is the what they call it, is the legacy that every person can live for their citizens. As I'm talking to you now, the education in Kogi State is nothing to write home about. To the extent that government secondary school, government primary school, even small schools in Kogi State, they are not functioning, except little private schools. So, as I'm talking to you now, all the children and the youth in Kogi State, instead of them to be in school, they are all on the street. Very soon you will hear that Kogi State will be the headquarters of crime. Because when people don't go to school, the next thing that they'll think about is to get into crime. What is holding them now? What is mitigating the youth to get into crime now is the illegal mining of coal. And by the time that is adjusted, you see the extent of what the Bello has done. So please, now that he has reported himself or EFCC have arrested him, they should do more to get back the treasury that he has looted in Kogi State. And also, if the governor, the one has succeeded him, Ododo, to not mitigate or to revive the education in Kogi State, I'm telling you, definitely Kogi State, like as you know, will be the headquarters of crime.
All right.
Thank you. I have more to say, but let me just stop here because I have it pains me in my heart. I have too much pain. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much, Sunday, for calling.
Thanks for calling, Sunday.
All right.
I mean, the people of Kogi State would definitely have a lot to say, you know, with regards this case. If you remember, this is the same governor who, you know, is said to have paid his children's school fees till graduation allegedly from Kogi State funds. You know, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars paid, you know, into a school for his children's school fees. So I'm sure they have a lot to say, you know, but, you know, I think I was really just, you know, trying to once again ask, you know, that we raise our standards of with which we rate, you know, leadership, and we rate the persons that we call leaders, so that the barest minimum is not, you know, enough to call a person Moses or Shakespeare. All right, that's all we're going to be taking on the newspapers this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. We're back here again tomorrow to once again bring you the newspaper front pages. But let's quickly share with you which way Nigeria. The reactions from some people to statements made by popular musician David Adeleke, a.k.a. Davido, have been pretty interesting to see. Now, what you find is that these people do not necessarily deny that our economy is actually in shambles, but their major concern is that it is being mentioned in public. That is, we agree that the economy is in a mess, but saying it on such platforms is demarketing Nigeria. Now, there's a proverb that says that you cannot heal a wound by saying that it's not there. And I appeal this morning that as a nation, we should learn to stop pretending and own the things that we are ashamed of. These things that are wrong with our country should embarrass us enough for us to demand that they are fixed, instead of turning our faces the other way. Some people don't mind the continuous degradation of our economy as long as you hide it from the world. Don't say it on international platforms. We need to bring back the ability to feel this shame that we're hiding from about what has happened to our great country. Let us feel the shame that at our age as a country, we still have questionable elections. Let us be embarrassed that with all our land resources, Nigerians are still struggling to feed. Because right after criticizing Davido, you will still get up, go outside, and experience that economy that he was speaking about. After telling him to shush, you will still go outside and experience that economy. Because even if Davido said the opposite and painted Nigeria like it was paradise, you will still go out this morning and experience the true nature of that economy that he was speaking about. So don't be scared that the world would hear how bad things are in Nigeria. Don't be scared. Be ashamed of it. And be so ashamed that you would tell your government to fix the problem. Hiding it from the world doesn't solve the issues. To those who are criticizing Davido, the news reports that there's, of course, this brand new terror group, Lakurawa, that is spreading in northern Nigeria. I'm sure you must have heard. Hiding that from the world wouldn't make it go away. And if Davido went on a podcast and said that there is no single terror group in Nigeria, Nigeria is completely safe, right after you finish watching that podcast or listening to it, the residents of Sokoto and Kebbi State will still go out and face the truth, which is that Lakurawa actually does exist. So don't hide these problems. Your country still doesn't have any functional refinery, well, until we hear more about Port Harcourt. The Auditor General recently released a report showing 197 billion naira fraud in MDAs. speaking about these things on any platform is not demarketing Nigeria. And hiding it from the world is not going to fix that problem. Your president is constantly seeking loans. Your citizens are crowding and pouring over themselves at the embassies of different countries across the world, looking for a way out of Nigeria. You really think that the world doesn't know about Nigeria's economic challenges? They know. Davido isn't your problem. He is just like every other Nigerian. And right after criticizing him for what he said, you will still go outside and face the realities of the Nigerian economy. Good morning, Nigerians.
Well, welcome back. Very interesting perspective there on which way Nigeria. Davido has been trending. I saw a tweet, I think it was Morris Moye who put out that tweet that said the two Davids are trending and the two Davids are right.
What's the second David?
David Hundain.
Oh. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Trending for other reasons. But, well, regarding Davido, this issue, I think that it's getting too long. I saw a tweet, at this point, I think if I were on his team, I'd probably advise him to just ignore and not say anything else, because he had put out a tweet saying that, oh, they said they'll cancel my shows in Nigeria. I don't have to perform in Nigeria, which I think might be a bit reaching, because whether or not there are people that criticize him, he has a huge fan base here in Nigeria. Nigerians are his family. He's Nigerian. Nigeria is his primary audience. So it's a thing with social media. Sometimes you're in their favor. Sometimes they are canceling you. The moment they see him, even the people that are criticizing him, the moment they see him, they want to take selfies. They will start singing his praises again. Social media is very fickle. So I just think you should just let it die. But
listen, two things, that I would say. The first one is, like I said, in the monologue, that it's irrelevant what Davido says. What is relevant is truth. And what we all know, that is the truth. Whether he said it or he didn't say it, whether he says the complete opposite, even if he lies, we would still face what is true. And so my point initially is, it's important that we focus on what is true and forget about what this person is saying, and stopping him from saying it doesn't change what is true. That's one. And then two, I feel like we should get to a place as a country where we place less expectations and less relevance on celebrities and their statements. I get the influence that they wield.
yeah, that's why I already have that
I get it, but the problem is that it's not Davido that should tell me about my political choices, and it is immature of me as a person to rely on him, and we're using him as an example. It's immature of me as a person to rely on an artist, a celebrity, a musician that only knows how to make beats or sing. It's immature of me to rely on him to guide my political choices.
I agree. However,
so you can support him as an artist or her as an artist. You can love their music, but to rely solely on them to guide your political statement, I think is flawed. You should be able to, as an individual, as a citizen, as a voter, be able to have your own political choices.
And I agree with you, but the reality of what we have, and it's not just in Nigeria, we see it in the West. Even in the recently concluded election,
I said the exact same thing.
We saw Beyonce taking the stage, Kelly Rowland, and all these people.
And here's the thing.
Amber Rose taking the stage.
Here's the thing with regards to that. You can clearly see that even with Beyonce, with Meg Thee Stallion, with every artist who performed for Kamala Harris, it still didn't move the needle with black voters, significantly. In fact, they even lost more black voters, in that election, even with those celebrities. And the point that I'm making there is, with the crowd that Beyonce pulls, those voters still said to themselves that you're not telling me who to vote. You sing. That's what you do. And that's what I think that we should do in Nigeria. Pretty much the same thing with regards protesting. Every now and then you say, Peter hasn't come out to support the protest. No. So if you want to protest, go out and protest.
The way that I see it is we cannot divorce political influence from celebrities and religious leaders. It's the same way that when they would oftentimes make comments about pastors or imams or religious leaders and their influence in politics, and it's why they oftentimes tell them not to be interwoven. But I think that the way that the country is going and the way that the world is going, we might not be able to divorce the influence that these people wield. Religious leaders, public figures, celebrities, we may not be able to divorce it. And I hear you completely in that Nigerians and citizens, not just in Nigeria, need to be able to make informed decisions based on themselves. But the reasons why brands, for example, will sign up and a celebrity or a public figure and make them a brand ambassador is because they are cashing out on their influence. There are certain places you will drive through and there's a billboard for, let's say, this mug. But you wouldn't look at it a second time. But because there's a photo of Davido holding the mug, you will take a double look. So we can't deny the influence that they wield, and also the fact that it's important. I mean, not just now, but in the coming years, I think the celebrities and public figures would also, in some cases, have to learn how to be diplomatic in certain international conversations and even national conversations, because some people will take what they say hook, line, and sinker, and that doesn't take away the fact that what Davido said is the truth. It doesn't take away the fact that the economy has been struggling, but there are also other gains to it. When the West oftentimes will talk about their stories and their public figures, you see the way that they portray their country as it's the most beautiful country, this one, that one. America has its own struggles too. A number of these countries have their own struggles too. So this is me just playing in the middle and saying, I understand where Davido is coming, but I also understand the people who say that public figures shouldn't, quote unquote, wash our dirty linen in public. It's just like when you and your siblings have these fights where it's like it's between both of us, but outside that, please don't come and put your mouth, because these are the things that when outsiders come out and say, everybody backs at them. But then again, we can keep going on. And yes, I did speak yesterday. I think my reaction was Davido lying? No, he wasn't. But let's move away from that and I share with you that the Minister of Finance, Warri and Kaduna, has stated that Nigeria must continue borrowing to fund its budget, even as some government agencies have exceeded revenue targets. Speaking during the Senate Joint Committee session on the 2025 to 2027 medium-term expenditure framework, Edu emphasized the need for productive and efficient borrowing to address infrastructure, social services, and support for vulnerable groups. The Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, added that the 35.5 trillion naira 2024 budget includes a $9.7 trillion deficit, necessitating further borrowing. He highlighted a long-term development plan targeting a GDP per capita of $33,000 by 2050.
And yeah, of course, if you're definitely aware, the Senate recently approved a 1.77 trillion naira or $2.2 billion loan request by the president to help finance the 2024 budget deficit. Agencies, of course, we also report revenue surplus. Several agencies lately reported surpassing their revenue goals. We, have continuously highlighted, these questions that have been asked by Nigerians, that, if they're raising this much money, why do we need to borrow? What's the use of borrowing? And at what point will the borrowing stop? So they are legitimate questions that must be asked by every Nigerian and also by the National Assembly before every loan request rather, is approved. The Nigerian Customs Service, claimed, or rather reportedly generated 5.352 trillion naira, exceeding its 5.09 trillion target. And, I mean, if every one of them, and of course, I think there's also been questions as to how the customs is generating this much. It's maybe because, of its own policies, which are flawed, and it's, and of course, the question that must be asked as well, if they also need to reduce customs figures, basically, or custom fees, I beg your pardon, basically, to accommodate more trade between countries and Nigeria, and of course, assist Nigerian entrepreneurs as well. But of course, these are conversations that we would need to have a little bit more of, as always, with economic experts to either agree with the Nigerian government that borrowing, must continue somehow, some way, regardless of how much revenue Nigeria is making. If we continue to improve on the revenue that has been generated, then maybe we can reduce borrowing in the future. Every now and then we hear stories. I think it was one of the things in the news this morning on the Daily Times, I believe, where it said, that Nigeria can make 33 trillion. I'm not sure what people carried that story. that Nigeria can make 33 trillion from livestock development. I'm not sure which of the papers it is. Oh yes, it's on the Daily Independent, I beg your pardon, where the minister says the livestock sector could contribute 33 trillion to the economy. These are some of the statements that you hear every now and then, but the question would always be, okay, but when are we going to start investing in that sector? When are we going to start investing properly in agriculture if we plan to generate the trillions of naira that we claim to be able to generate, from agriculture and from other other resources here in Nigeria? Yeah.
Well, I guess, like you mentioned earlier, that's something that we'll have to discuss when we bring in an expert to explore the conversations. But that will be all that we have this morning. Thank you for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. Remember that the conversations continue on our social media platforms at News Central TV. And I'm hoping that people can finally, eventually move on from the Davido conversation. Let the boy breathe, or let the man breathe, and let's get on to other things. We'll be back again with more stories, same time tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. But as I wrap up, I'd like to use this opportunity to wish my sister a happy birthday, Pastor Valerie Smart. Thank you so much for being the most wonderful big sister ever. This is where we draw the curtains. We'll see you again tomorrow. I am Olive, MOD.
And I am Osaogi Ogbon. See you tomorrow.